A blondie is a brownie without the cocoa powder, but today we're gonna add a special ingredient, peanut butter. Welcome to the Salted Pepper, where we cook for real life using real food and we keep it real simple. Today's recipe is for a blondie, a peanut butter blondie. You only need a few ingredients and you probably already have them at home. So this is a super easy recipe to make. Let's get right into it. You can use a stand mixer or an electric hand mixer in a large mixing bowl. It doesn't matter. This is not a fussy recipe. However, if you've made brownies from scratch before, you know a lot of times they call for melted butter, and there's a reason for that. And you could actually do that in this recipe, but I found I like the texture a little bit better when I cream the sugar and the butter together first. So that's what I'm gonna do, but you could melt the butter and mix this up in a mixing bowl with a whisk too. You want a half of a cup of salted or unsalted butter. I prefer salted. If you want to use unsalted, you may want to go up on the salt in the recipe just a little bit. Then we're going to add in a half of a cup of packed brown sugar, which is no longer packed because it's been in that cup, but it was when I measured it, and a half of a cup of white granulated sugar. Now, traditionally in a blondie, you use more brown sugar or all brown sugar, and you don't use white sugar. But I'm going for a texture and a flavor here, and I liked the addition of both of them. So that's what we're gonna start with. Lock your mixer bowl and just go on stir to combine. Once you see that it's kind of clumpy, the butter's starting to combine with the sugars, scrape off your paddle, make sure all the butter gets in there, and now you can add in your oil. I'm using 2 tablespoons of oil. Any neutral flavored oil is perfectly fine. I wouldn't use olive oil though, especially if it's a really good quality because it's going to impart a flavor, but avocado oil works great, or if you want to use canola oil, whatever you like to use, just a neutral flavored oil. Now we can go on speed 2 and cream everything together. Okay, now you don't have to take this to where it's really super light and fluffy because we want a dense blondie. But what this did in my test batches is it allowed like a combination of like a little cookie-ish and a little brownie-ish texture, which I thought was perfect for the peanut butter blondies. So now what we can do is add in the eggs and the peanut butter. And you don't have to be fussy about this, not one egg at a time. We're gonna add in both. And we're gonna add in the peanut butter at the same time. And the peanut butter is 3/4 of a cup. And you saw that I put in 2 eggs, they're large eggs. Now go on speed 2 again until everything is mixed together. That took like literally 30 seconds. Now scrape down the sides of the bowl, and then we're gonna add in vanilla extract or vanilla paste, whichever you prefer. I'm using my homemade vanilla paste because I just love to use it. It's super easy to make, but either works fine. 1 tablespoon. And mix that in, and then we'll add in our dry ingredients. For the dry ingredients, you're gonna want 1 1/4 cups of all-purpose flour, half of a teaspoon of fine grind or kosher sea salt, and 1 teaspoon of baking powder. So we're gonna mix those together. And then we are gonna add it in about half at a time. That looks good. You can go on stir, which would be low speed if you're using an electric handheld mixer. Scrape down the sides, and then we'll add in the rest. All right, add in the rest. And go on low speed again. And I only mix it until the flour is just incorporated. We're gonna fold in any other little pieces of flour that we find. You don't wanna over mix this, okay? So just go until most of it is incorporated. Now, if there's any extra little bit of flour on the side of your bowl, just fold that in to the batter. All right, scrape off the paddle, get as much as you can off, and then we will prepare our pan and get this into the oven. You want to put it into a preheated oven at 325 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, remember the wrapper from the butter? Save that, because it's gonna help us get the parchment in, and I'm gonna show you that in just a second. So what I have here is what's considered a quarter pan, and it is about 9 by 12 on the internal measurements, okay? So you can use a 9 by 13 pan as well. That'll work just fine. You can also use an 8 by 10 pan or even an 8 by 8. Your Blondies are just gonna be thicker and you're gonna need to bake them longer, but any pan size will work. Don't go much bigger than this or they're gonna be too thin, okay? Now, to get the parchment in so that it fits around into the edges, because this is a little bit thicker of a batter than a traditional brownie batter, this is the trick. Use your butter wrapper and just put a little bit of butter into each corner. You don't need a lot. Obviously, this isn't even coming in contact with the food. And then in the middle, it's just like that. That way we don't waste not a bit of the butter. And now take parchment that's roughly measured out to size. You want it to go up the sides as well, and press it in and kind of get the corners smoothed out a little bit. Because this batter is thicker, it does not spread into the corners like a brownie batter will, so you want to push the batter into the corners. And if they're crumpled up or moved like this, you're just going to not have straight edges. No big deal if that happens though. All right, perfect. Now add your batter, which is kind of like almost, well, it's a little bit looser than cookie dough, but definitely not as loose as a brownie batter. And then just spread it around in the pan. Try to get it as even as you can, because again, it doesn't spread that much when you bake it. Sometimes I like to take a spoon at the very end. It just gives me a little more control. And sort of just spread it out like that. Kind of looks like fudge, doesn't it? It's not though. All right, that looks good. Now it's gonna go in to bake for between 20 and 25 minutes. All right, here we go. So they are looking beautiful. The top is nice and brown. I went a total of 25 minutes, but that can vary by oven. And I could have actually probably pulled these out about 2 minutes ago. If you're in doubt, you can take a internal temperature reading, believe it or not, just by sticking this right in. And you want to be above 190. I'm up to 210, so I know we're definitely done. Don't worry about the little hole that I put in there, because guess what? We're gonna let these cool right on the cooling rack, and then we are gonna top it with a delicious peanut butter topping. So our peanut butter blondies are almost finished cooling, and we're gonna make up this delicious icing to go on top. You can use a stand mixer or a hand mixer with a large mixing bowl. First thing we're gonna add in is 1/2 cup of peanut butter. Half of a cup of salted butter. You can use unsalted, but you might want to add a little bit more salt. And you can do that to taste at the end, that's fine. 1/4 teaspoon of salt. I use fine ground sea salt or kosher salt. 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract or paste. Again, I'm gonna use my homemade. And then we're just gonna mix that together until it's well blended. Then we will add in the powdered sugar. All right, that looks perfect. Scrape down the sides. All right, once the bowl is scraped, then we will start to add in the powdered sugar. And the powdered sugar, how you measure it, measure out 1 1/3 cups of powdered sugar, put it in a bowl, then sift it, then measure out 1 1/3 cups right here. I also keep extra handy just in case, because the powdered sugar is what determines the thickness of this. And also you can taste it to see how sweet you want it. I like to keep mine a little bit less sweet than some other recipes that I've seen. So I go with this measurement, but you can always add more powdered sugar. All right, you can dump it in increments or you can dump it in all at once. It does not matter. But go on low speed. That matters. I'm gonna go on the stir speed because if you go too fast, you're gonna have powdered sugar all over the place. All right, that looks good. Now I'm gonna scrape down the sides of the bowl and then I'm gonna go up to medium speed. Just get everything really nice and smooth. Once it's nice and smooth, then you can give it a taste and determine whether or not you want to add more sugar, or you could add a little bit more peanut butter too if you wanted. Oh my goodness, this is so delicious. Wow, we're perfect. We are perfect. The consistency looks good, but honestly, the flavor is out of this world. Okay, so we've got our Blondies. They are cool to the touch. That's what you want. Then what I do is lift them out kind of carefully here. The parchment comes in handy. Put them on a flat surface and we're gonna just put this on top and spread it around. There is no particular way to do this. I mean, you could get fancy, I guess. You could certainly, if you wanted to, put it into a piping bag and pipe it on, but I don't worry about that. All right, then once it's all evenly spread, I just kind of go back and forth with this little spreader and just make a little design. All right, you can absolutely slice and serve them now, but the icing's going to be a little bit on the soft side. What I do is put it back in the pan and throw it in the refrigerator for about 15-20 minutes or so. So once it's in the refrigerator, just long enough to set up the icing a little bit. I mean, it depends on how hard you want it. You can leave it in for a couple hours and it will harden up a little bit more, but usually 30 minutes is good. Then we will carefully lift it back out. And put it back on the cutting board and then cut it up. So I'm gonna cut it pretty much straight down the middle here, so you can see the inside. Looks good. Oh my gosh. So it's like moist and a little fudgy, which it wouldn't be fudgy, it would be peanut buttery, I guess. Oh, I just love these. And then you can cut your squares however big or small you want. I happen to like the crispy edges here, so I always get the edge piece. Oh my. These amaze me every single time I make them. They're like a Blondie meets a peanut butter cookie They're just so delicious. You have to give them a try.